While most directors treat CGI like a safety net, Christopher Nolan treats it like the emergency exit. His approach? If you can shoot it for real, you shoot it for real. That's why there are no CGI skyscraper jungles replacing Gotham in The Dark Knight, and why in Inception, Nolan insisted on crafting as much as possible in camera. And this wasn't some gimmick. It's a philosophy Nolan has carried his whole career. From blowing up a real plane in Tenet to flipping a real 18-wheeler in The Dark Knight, Nolan always looks for the practical first. He trusts the physics of the real world more than the perfection of a computer. Here's the thing, our brains are smarter than we give them credit for. Even when CGI looks perfect, something about it feels weightless. Deep down, you know it's not real. But when you see Joseph Gordon-Levitt floating through a hallway that's actually spinning, your body reacts. Think about how you feel when you watch a Marvel movie where the climax is two CGI armies clashing in a CGI wasteland. It can look spectacular, but do you feel it? Compare that to the raw panic of Inception's hallway fight, or the debris-filled chaos of the Paris café explosion. Your gut knows the difference. Nolan once said, "If you can photograph something real, you should." That philosophy drove every decision in Inception. From filming in real cities instead of studio backlots, to building dream sets on massive rigs, to hiring stunt performers who literally leapt off skyscrapers, Nolan kept it grounded. Even when CGI was unavoidable, like the folding Paris streets, it was never the main dish, it was a garnish, a tool to extend what was already real. That's why Inception still looks flawless today. The cafe explosion doesn't feel dated. The Snow Fortress climax could run in theaters right now. Because real stunts, practical debris, and physical sets never go out of style. And that's the genius. Nolan didn't reject technology. He just refused to let it replace reality. So let's break down the wildest moments Nolan captured, and why they hit so much harder than anything a computer could cook up. Let's start with the scene everyone remembers, the hallway fight. Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Arthur, brawling with armed mercenaries while the world tilts around them. It looks like CGI wizardry, but it wasn't. Nolan and production designer Guy Hendricks Dias actually built a full-scale, 100-foot-long hallway on a gimbal. A massive rig that could rotate 360 degrees. Think carnival ride, except instead of cotton candy, there are professional stunt performers being thrown into walls. Joseph Gordon-Levitt wasn't a passenger. He trained for weeks to handle choreography inside this spinning death trap. And the best part? He did almost all of it himself. No CGI doubles, no green screen floatiness, just sweat, bruises, and stamina. Cinematographer Wally Pfister mounted IMAX cameras directly to the rotating rig. That meant when the hallway spun, the camera spun too. You never lose orientation. When the walls become the floor, you feel like you're trapped inside the dream with Arthur. And it wasn't easy. Pfister said lining up shots while the entire set rotated was one of the hardest challenges of his career. But Nolan wanted audiences to feel it, to sense the weight of gravity shifting under Arthur's feet. Compare that to a modern CGI-heavy fight scene. Characters leap around like video game avatars, floating weightlessly. It looks bigger, flashier, but it doesn't hit you in the gut. The rotating hallway became instantly iconic. It's now taught in film schools as one of the most ambitious practical fight scenes ever shot. And the kicker? Nolan was only just getting started with rigs. The hallway wasn't done messing with Arthur. After the gravity shift in the dream layers, he's left floating through the hotel corridors, scrambling to improvise. Most directors, they'd throw actors in front of a green screen, add some wire rigs, and let CGI handle the rest. Nolan doubled down. He repurposed the same rotating hallway rig. This time, the goal wasn't to spin, but to simulate weightlessness. Gordon-Levitt was strapped into wires, pulled, and yanked through the real set while the camera followed close behind. The brilliance is in the imperfection. Real weightlessness isn't smooth. It's awkward, jerky, unpredictable. And that's what you see in Arthur's movements. He's not floating like a CGI character, he's struggling. His body reacts naturally to every tug of the wire. Gordon-Levitt later admitted it was exhausting. Days of being thrown around, bruised, and disoriented. But his commitment shows. Every move has weight, and that's why it convinces your brain. When you watch this scene, you don't think, cool special effect. You think, holy shitty, they actually did that. And that's Nolan's magic, turning impossible physics into believable chaos. Now, let's talk about one of the most insane visual moments in Inception. The Paris café explosion. Cobb and Ariadne sit at a quiet cafe table and then boom! The entire street detonates in slow motion. Looks like CGI, right? Wrong. Nolan's team rigged a Paris street with air mortars, high-pressure cannons, and explosive charges. Every single object, glass, fruit, wood, furniture, was physically blown into the air. The trick was filming at high frame rates. By capturing the chaos at thousands of frames per second, debris that would normally vanish in a blink instead floats gracefully across the frame. That's what gives the scene its dreamlike quality, without using a single digital particle effect. Ellen Page, Ariadne, later said the shoot was terrifying. Even though it was controlled, the shockwaves and debris felt dangerously real. Her reactions in the film, eyes wide, breathing shallow, that's not acting, that's adrenaline. And the authenticity shows. 15 years later, the cafe explosion still looks jaw-dropping. Compare that to CGI explosions from the same era. They've already aged into cartoonish fireballs. This wasn't rendered, it was captured. And that makes all the difference. All right, let's give credit where it's due. Not everything could be done practically. When Paris bends upward and folds onto itself, CGI was necessary, but Nolan still grounded the effect in reality. The base imagery was real Paris streets, filmed on location. Visual effects artists then extended those real streets upward, digitally bending them into the sky. But here's why it works. The textures are real. You're still looking at real cobblestones, real street lamps, real sky. The CGI only does what physics can't, bend the horizon. Instead of inventing a cartoon dreamscape, Nolan bent reality until it broke. That's why this scene has aged so well. It's CGI, yes, but CGI anchored in photography. CGI used as seasoning, not the meal. Now let's head into the snowy climax, Cobb's teams storming the fortress in the mountains. On paper, this could have been pure CGI. A digital fortress, digital snow, actors shot on a green stage. Not for Nolan. The crew built a full-scale fortress set in Alberta, Canada, surrounded by real snow and mountains. Stunt performers staged ski chases and firefights in brutal conditions. Massive pyrotechnics were rigged into snowbanks to mimic avalanches. Explosions actually tore through the landscape. The sequence was heavily inspired by classic James Bond movies, and you can feel it. That tactile, rugged energy of On Her Majesty's Secret Service or The Spy Who Loved Me, except shot with modern IMAX cameras. Filming wasn't easy. Cast and crew dealt with freezing temperatures, blinding light, and unpredictable weather. But that struggle gave the sequence authenticity. When characters shiver, when snow blinds the frame, you believe it. Compare it to modern CGI snow battles, which often look glossy and weightless. Nolan's version feels bone-chillingly real. And that's why this fortress climax, despite being the least dreamlike layer, is one of the most intense. It's grounded in physical risk. Finally, let's talk about the little object that haunted audiences everywhere, the spinning top. Surprise, it was mostly practical. Nolan filmed a real top spinning on real surfaces. CGI was only used to subtly extend the spin or smooth the wobble, but the imperfections were kept. The tiny shivers, the near falls, that's real physics. And that's why the ending works. You lean forward watching, not sure if it will fall, because you know you're looking at something tangible, something with real stakes, minimal CGI, maximum impact. So why does Inception still look incredible today, while so many 2010 blockbusters already feel dated? Because Nolan trusted reality. He trusted sets, stunts, debris, and gravity. CGI was never the foundation. It was the spice, the seasoning, the thing you barely notice. That's why the hallway fight still makes your stomach twist. That's why the cafe blast still makes you flinch. That's why the fortress feels like vintage Bond. 15 years later, Inception hasn't aged a day, because reality doesn't age. Meanwhile, CGI-heavy movies from the same era, their tech has already been surpassed. Their spectacle looks old, but Nolan's spectacle still hits. And that's the big takeaway. If you want timeless action, You have to keep it grounded. Because practical effects don't go out of style. So maybe Hollywood should take a page from Nolan's book. More debris, less pixels, more stunts, fewer green screens, more actors reacting to chaos instead of pretending against a blank wall. Because in the end, reality always beats digital. And hey, if you want me to break down how Nolan pulled off Interstellar without faking space with CGI, make sure to subscribe. That one gets even crazier.